All right. So many of you have been asking us to dig into this whole discipline thing. And look, I get it.
Yeah.
We all want to know how to actually be more disciplined, right?
For sure.
So today we're doing a deep dive into this YouTube video, Discipline is Power by Fame Inspector.
Oh, yeah, the one with
You know the one, right?
the super intense dude on the thumbnail.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So we're going to see if this video lives up to all the hype.
It's interesting, right, how he uses that, like, really strong imagery, almost like going to war against mediocrity.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And he really goes all in on this idea that discipline, it's not supposed to feel good, you know?
Mhm.
It's about pushing through being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
embracing that grind.
Absolutely.
And there's this one line that really stuck with me. He says, discipline is a trench, not a spa.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
It's pretty powerful, right?
That's really good.
So it makes you think
It does.
about all those areas in our own lives where we need to, dig in and fight for what we want.
Where are our trenches?
Exactly.
What do we got to, like, hunker down and
Yeah.
get through?
Yeah. It's so easy to say we want to be more disciplined,
Totally.
but this video, it's like a reality check.
Yeah.
It forces you to think about all that effort, all that struggle.
The not so glamorous side.
Yeah, those moments where you just want to hit snooze or scroll through your phone. And that's where I think the heart of his message comes in, Ro.
Right.
He's saying it's not about talent, it's not about luck.
It's about action.
It's about action, yeah.
Like winners and losers, the difference is winners do the thing even when they don't feel like it.
It's so true. We've
Yeah.
all been there.
Oh, yeah.
Tired, unmotivated, staring at a task we just don't want to do.
Ugh, all the time.
But he's like, no, you got to push through those feelings and just get it done.
Just got to do it, yeah.
And it really ties in with another point he makes
Yeah.
about discipline being like a muscle.
Oh, yeah, I love that analogy.
It needs to be trained, right?
Absolutely, it needs to be challenged.
You don't just wake up one day with willpower of steel. Like,
No, you got to work at it.
you got to build it up gradually.
Yeah, it's like any other skill.
Yeah, you got to push those boundaries
Yeah.
and expand your comfort zone.
And that's where consistency is so important.
Right.
Small actions every single day, those are what add up in the long run.
Totally.
And there's this quote, I think it really gets at the core of it.
Okay, yeah.
He says, it's not about doing what you like, it's about doing what you need.
Oh, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Making choices that align with our goals even when they're not fun in the moment.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
Because he goes on to say that discipline, something we often think of as restrictive, can actually lead to more freedom.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
It's kind of paradoxical.
It is.
How can something that demands so much self-control actually, set us free?
It's a good question, right?
It is.
So I was thinking about it, and it's like, if we're constantly giving in to our impulses
Mm-hmm.
or letting external pressures dictate our choices,
Letting other people control us, yeah.
are we really free?
That's a good point.
Or are we just being controlled by all those external forces?
Yeah, like, are we actually in the driver's seat or are we just
Exactly.
passengers,
Exactly. So maybe discipline is about gaining control over our choices, our behaviors,
Taking back the wheel.
and ultimately our lives.
I like that.
And even he uses the example of choosing to abstain from alcohol and smoking
Interesting.
as a way of asserting that personal control.
Setting boundaries.
Yeah, setting boundaries.
Living in alignment with your values.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
And it ties in with his whole emphasis on organization and punctuality, right?
Being on time, being reliable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are pillars of success.
It's not just the big goals, it's the everyday stuff.
Right. It's not just about these big lofty goals. It's about the practicalities of managing your time, honoring your commitments, being reliable.
Totally.
So it makes me wonder, how do you personally relate to organization?
Well,
Is that something that comes naturally to you?
I think...
Or is it an area where you, a lot of us, are
Yeah.
constantly trying to improve?
Yeah, I think it's always a work in progress for me.
Right.
But I've definitely learned over time how important it is
Yeah, totally.
to have some kind of system in place
Yeah.
that supports your goals. You know?
Absolutely.
It's like what works for you might not work for someone else.
Exactly.
But finding that structure that helps you stay on track.
Yeah.
That's key.
Yeah. And I feel like this guy, the creator of this video,
Yeah.
he's definitely, He's definitely a meticulous planner kind of guy.
Oh, for sure.
He's all about constant growth, facing fears,
Mm-hmm.
pushing yourself beyond those limits.
Like, it's not a one-time thing. It's a way of life.
Yeah, it's continuous.
Yeah.
It's self-improvement. He even compares it to, like, training both your mind and your body.
Right. Like, you're always working on yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's a really powerful point.
It is.
There's this underlying belief that we're all capable of more than we think, and discipline is the key.
It's about unlocking that potential, yeah.
Yeah, it's like shifting your mindset.
Absolutely.
To see challenges not as roadblocks, but as
opportunities to learn and grow.
Yeah, exactly.
And become stronger.
But this journey of self-improvement, it's not free, right?
No, there's a cost.
He makes that really clear.
Yeah.
He says, every freedom in your life has a cost, and the price is being disciplined.
Ooh, I like that.
It's a powerful statement, right?
It is.
It forces you to think about,
Yeah.
What are you willing to pay?
What are you willing to give up?
To achieve those freedoms.
The trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he gets even more intense.
Oh, really?
He's like, you got to master your routines.
Okay.
And strive for perfection in everything you do.
Wow.
So, I don't know, is that realistic?
That's a good question.
Is that even healthy?
I think
there's got to be some balance, right?
I think you're right, yeah.
Like, striving for perfection can be paralyzing.
Absolutely.
If you're constantly afraid of making a mistake.
Yeah, you get stuck.
And rigid routines, I mean.
They can stifle your creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need some spontaneity.
Yeah, totally.
So it's about finding that sustainable approach, right?
Yeah, finding what works for you.
Exactly.
It's not one size fits all.
Not at all.
Okay, so speaking of not one size fits all, let's go back to that imagery he used at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Unleashing the inner beast.
What does that even mean?
Right.
Is it just hype?
Is it just hype, or is there something deeper there?
I think it's a metaphor for, like, tapping into your inner strength.
Okay.
That drive, that potential that's inside of you.
Yeah.
Breaking free from limitations.
Yeah.
And going after what you want.
Yeah, and like with this,
with ferocity.
Fierce determination.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a powerful image, right?
It is. It can be really motivating.
It makes you think about your own inner beast.
Yeah.
What's holding it back?
What's getting in the way?
What would it take to unleash it?
Yeah, and are we even ready for that?
Right. There's a lot to unpack there.
There is.
But before we go too deep into, like, the philosophical side of things, let's talk about how this unleashing the beast idea plays out in real life,
Practical terms.
What are some actual things we can do to cultivate that inner drive and channel it towards our goals?
I like that.
We'll explore that and more when we come back.
Sounds good. Welcome back. So we were talking about this whole unleashing the inner beast thing.
Yeah, when I first heard that phrase, I was kind of like, okay, is this a motivational poster or what?
Right. But the more I thought about it, the more I kind of started to get it. Like, there's something powerful about that imagery.
Yeah, it's about that primal energy, right?
Yeah.
That drive to push beyond your limits.
Yeah, and it connects with that idea of breaking free from your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
From the self-doubt and fear that hold us back. It's like embracing the challenge, even the discomfort.
Yeah, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
That's where the growth happens, right?
Right. Remember that trench analogy?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This is where it gets real.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
It's not about being comfy. It's about going after what you want.
Yeah, with everything you've got.
Relentless determination.
And I think that's where discipline comes in.
Yeah, it's the fuel, right?
It's what keeps you going.
It's what pushes you through.
When things get tough.
Overcoming those obstacles.
Yeah.
Achieving those goals.
You can have all the dreams in the world.
Yeah, but
without discipline.
Without action. They're just dreams.
It's daydreams, yeah.
And I think this idea of discipline, it goes beyond just personal goals, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Like, he talks about discipline as a collector force. Societies, organizations, families.
Like, think about a sports team.
Yeah, okay.
Every player needs to be disciplined.
In their training, their diet.
Their commitment to the team.
Yeah, if one person slacks off.
It affects everyone.
It can bring the whole team down.
And even in a democracy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Citizens need to be informed, engaged.
Yeah.
Participate in the process.
Otherwise, things fall apart.
So it's interesting how discipline, something we often think of as like a personal thing,
right,
actually plays such a big role in the bigger systems around us.
It makes you think about like the balance between individual freedom
and collective responsibility.
Yeah.
Big questions.
Big questions. But let's bring it back to the individual level for a sec.
Okay.
If discipline is this key ingredient for success, what about motivation?
Yeah, where does that fit in?
Because discipline without motivation, it's like
brutal.
it's like forcing yourself to run a marathon
Yeah,
when you don't even like jogging.
when you hate running.
Exactly. So how do we find that spark
That inner drive.
that keeps us going?
Is it something we're born with,
Yeah. Is it nature or nurture?
or can we develop it?
I think it's got to be a little bit of both, right?
Probably, yeah.
Like some people just seem naturally driven.
More goal-oriented.
But for a lot of us,
Yeah.
we got to work at it.
We got to cultivate it.
We got to find that motivation.
And I think it starts with connecting to your why.
Oh, I love that.
Like, why is this goal important to you?
Yeah.
What will achieving it allow you to do?
What's the deeper meaning?
To become, to experience.
Yeah. Finding that emotional
And
connecting.
it gives your discipline purpose.
Otherwise, it's easy to lose steam.
To get sidetracked.
Yeah, give in to distractions.
Yeah, those temptations are always there.
And I think that why can change over time too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What motivates you at the beginning
Might not be the same thing.
might not be what keeps you going down the line.
You got to be flexible. You got to reassess.
Yeah, make adjustments as you go.
It's a journey, not a destination.
That's a good way to put it.
Discipline is about continuous learning,
Yeah.
growth, adaptation.
Embracing those challenges and setbacks.
There are opportunities for growth
Yeah,
and being kind to yourself along the way.
that's so important.
It is.
We're all human.
We all make mistakes.
The key is to learn from them
Pick yourself up.
and keep going.
Yeah. And remember, discipline isn't about being perfect.
It's about progress.
It's about getting better every day.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into discipline,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Discipline is a tool, a powerful tool.
It is.
It can help you achieve your goals,
Unlock your potential.
live a more fulfilling life.
But like any tool,
It can be used for good or for bad.
it can be misused.
So it's up to each of us
To choose wisely
to define our values
and use discipline
as a force for positive change.
in our own lives and in the world.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll leave you to ponder
Those implications.
all these things we've talked about.
Thanks for joining us.
So we've talked a lot about building those habits, about how discipline can impact like society as a whole.
Yep.
We talked about that whole muscle analogy, about how consistency is key,
Right.
and even how like that drive for perfection
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes backfire.
Absolutely.
But there's one thing I want to touch on before we wrap up.
Okay.
What about when the rules and regulations, they come from outside of us?
Oh, interesting.
Like societal norms?
Yeah, all those expectations.
Are those external structures, are they always a good thing?
That's a big question.
It is.
A really important one.
Where do we draw the line between, personal freedom
Mm-hmm.
and the responsibility we have to the community?
That's something we could probably spend a whole other episode talking about.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I think it brings up a really important point.
Okay.
Discipline, it can be a force for good,
Absolutely.
but it can also be misused.
Yeah, it can be abused.
I got to be aware of that.
And constantly question those systems
Mm.
that influence our lives.
The structures that shape our choices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes me think about like different parenting styles.
Oh, interesting.
Some parents are super strict,
All right.
lots of rules,
Emphasize obedience.
while others are more permissive,
Yeah.
give their kids more freedom.
But both approaches, in a way, they involve discipline.
It's just expressed in different ways with
Yeah.
different potential outcomes.
And it highlights how important context is. Right.
Right.
What might be considered disciplined in one situation.
Will it be seen as rigid or even oppressive in another?
So I think it comes back to finding that balance between nurturing individual freedom,
And recognizing that we're all part of something bigger.
collective responsibility.
And it brings us back to that idea from the video.
Okay.
Discipline is a path to empowerment,
Mm-hmm.
but it also makes you think about the potential downsides.
The dark side of discipline.
When it becomes dogma,
Yeah, when it's used to control other people.
limit their choices.
Discipline, at its core, should be about self-mastery.
Not imposing your will on others.
Exactly.
It's about building that inner strength.
aligning your actions with your values.
Not conforming to some external expectation.
Yeah, it's got to come from within.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into discipline, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
Discipline, it's a journey of self-discovery.
I like that.
It's an ongoing process
Mhm.
of learning, growing, and refining how you approach life.
It's about finding that sweet spot
between structure and freedom,
between pushing your boundaries
and embracing your imperfections.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's about using discipline
as a tool
to create a life
that's meaningful
fulfilling.
for yourself and for the world around you.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll leave you to continue your own exploration
Of this complex and fascinating topic.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
See you next time.